I am Julianne Way, the opinions editor, and this is Andrew Grottkau, our sports editor. Please hold your applause throughout the event, except for now as we introduce our participants. Duncan College sophomore, Juliette Turner Jones. And Brown College sophomore, Grace Wickerson.
So our purpose here today is to highlight and examine the differences between the candidates and provide the student body with a greater grasp of their leadership, ideas, and policies. Thank you for joining us today, candidates, and let's begin with our opening statements. We'll start with Grace.
Now, when people ask me about the Student Association, I'm excited to tell them about all the projects I'm working on, the amazing new student representatives, committee members, exec team, and senators I get to work with every single day, and the amazing impact that I've seen my friends and myself have on campus. But when I tell about these things, I always get a very similar response. Now, Grace, that's really amazing that you do that, but I don't think that's anything that I could ever do. And I think it's amazing that we go to such an amazing school like Rice, with such intelligent, passionate, and people who could just have an amazing impact, and yet we still feel like we don't have a voice to make change. Hi, my name is Grace Wickerson, and as your internal vice president, I will make sure that you have a voice to create change in the Student Association. Not only will I support our committee members and our new student representatives, but I want to build out programs that support you and your ideas to make change on our campus. If that's something you like, help Grace win the race.
Hi, my name is Juliette Turner, and I'm a sophomore from Duncan College, and I'm also running for IVP. Now, before I decided to run for IVP, I spent a lot of time talking to the executive council, committee heads, and NSRs, and asking them what the IVP role meant to them. And they told me that the IVP was a mentor and a manager. The IVP is not an idea generator. The IVP is a champion of your ideas. The IVP is not an initiator. The IVP is an executor. Now, as IVP, I would draw on my experience as the National Executive Director of a nonprofit organization, and I've balanced over $500,000 budgets and 6 staff members from across America. And I would also draw on my experience as Duncan's senator and as NSR my freshman year. But this campaign is not about me, it is about you. I've spent a lot of time going to different colleges this past week asking you what's wrong with the SA. You've told me about the problems in the NSR program. You've told me about how committees do not come and ask for your ideas, and this is what I would like to change as SA IVP.
So this question is for both candidates, and Juliette will answer first. What qualities in past IVPs do you hope to emulate, and which do you wish to avoid?
Sure, so Sarah, who's sitting right over there, has done an amazing job as IVP. And I know that she's worked very closely with the NSRs, making sure that they feel needed and appreciated and valued. And this is something that I wish to continue and to even emphasize. Currently, the NSRs are put into committees. There's 6 standing committees within the SA, and the NSRs are appointed to one of those. Now, I would still keep that, yet I would embrace the NSRs further by having bi-weekly dinners with all 33 of the NSRs, but I would break them into half, so I would have a one-on-one personal relationship with the NSRs. I think this is very important to make sure that each college is recognized within the SA as well, because there are 3 NSRs from each college, and this is very important. Also, with the committee structure, I would want to additionally add that the committee heads spend time going to the 11 colleges and generating input on what they should actually do before they decide their tasks. And I know that IVPs in the past have been very conscientious of making sure that the committees have a direct focus, yet I would tell the committees and encourage them just to have 1 to 2 projects a year so that we're not just an echo chamber of ideas, but we spend time talking to the Rice community. Because the SA doesn't stand for just the committees and just the NSRs. Rather, it stands for the Rice community as a whole. So I want to make sure that every person feels listened to and needed by the committees and the NSRs. So this is something that I would specifically work on as IVP.
Same question to Grace.
So Sarah Meadow has been an amazing mentor for me and a friend, and her year as IVP has definitely brought a human element to the position. She had bi-weekly meetings with the committee heads, always making sure to know what they needed and where they needed help. She made sure to always be open and available for questions, making her text, email, Facebook message open for people to give feedback. And that's something I want to emulate, because if I'm your IVP, yes, I'm in a leadership position, but that doesn't mean I'm not accessible. That doesn't mean I don't want to help, and that doesn't mean I don't want to see the Rice community be a better place. Something that I think I would like to build off of is even related to work that Sarah and I did this year on how do we ensure that the SA is more open, transparent, and influential on campus, and that gives you opportunities as a student body to get involved. I personally feel like serving as a member of a committee, I liked actually the NSRs having their own project, because they each had something that they could go to every committee meeting and talk about and feel passionate about. It's something that drove them. Every single day they would come and just be like, I'm so excited to work on X. And I also want to open those opportunities up to more students, because I think your ideas matter. You should be also able to get involved in the SA, and the SA shouldn't just be an insiders club that takes your ideas and doesn't let you get involved.
Thank you, candidates. So this question is also for both of you, and we'll start with Grace. So what do you view as the limitations of the Student Association, and how do you plan to take full advantage of your role as IVP to affect change?
I feel like currently the Student Association isn't doing the best it can to talk to as many groups as it can. Because I feel like this year we've put more of a focus on being more present in the student body. And yet I feel like there's much more we could do to talk to groups that don't currently feel represented. Talk to groups such as athletes and international students about the things they care about and the things that they want to see on campus. Because right now they kind of feel like the SA just doesn't work for them. The SA is an echo chamber, and that's because it's a leadership pipeline. It's kind of, you get in as an SR, you move on to senator, you maybe move on to a committee chair or exec position, but it's kind of just the same group of people. And when you're the same group of people, you never really get to hear different ideas and perspectives. And I feel like that's something that I would want to be doing as your internal vice president, is reaching out to groups and engaging with them. For example, I've already reached out to the president of the Shepherd School Student Society. And she told me that for music students, they actually have trouble with O Week because they aren't able to practice. And that could be a project that the SA could easily engage in if we just send some people out there to work with them. And it could actually have a meaningful impact for students who currently feel like their voices aren't represented in the Student Association.
So there's been a lot of talk recently about restructuring some aspects of the SA. I think that we don't even need to try to restructure the SA. We just need to use the current structure more efficiently. And now the SA, there are elements that could be considered a leadership pipeline, but that's also a faulty definition of the SA, because the SA stands for the Student Association, which is you. So I would want to make sure that the SA is listening to you. And I know I mentioned this in my opening statement, but the reason that I do is because I had lunch at Lovett the other day, and I was talking to someone who was head of a student club. And they told me that often the SA, so like the Senate and the committees, do projects that student clubs and other organizations are already doing. And I was really troubled by that, because that means that the elected officials to the SA, or even the appointed officials to the SA government, aren't listening and aren't aware of what the student body is already doing. I don't think the problems that Rice faces need to necessarily be fixed by the people who are in the SA Senate. I think that you, the people who are involved in different clubs and different organizations, have the power to fix problems. And as long as the committee heads can go out and say, so how do you want to fix this problem? Or what are you doing to already fix this? That is how we can affect real change, and this is something I would improve.
This next question is again for both candidates, and we'll start with Juliette. Along with the other SA members, you both introduced the LEAP proposal, but did not have your name on the final legislation and declined to comment to the Thresher on the process by which feedback was gathered. Why did you do so? In the future, what sort of feedback gathering and approval process should the SA follow with these sorts of proposals?
I'm really glad you raised this question, and the reason that I am is because I learned so much from this experience. I was approached with the LEAP proposal, and I personally thought it was a good idea. I was like, wow, this is something that I really wanted to work on as senator, and so I jumped aboard. Yet then when we started talking to the student body, when I came back to Duncan, when I went to other colleges, talked to the other senators, talked with NSRs, it wasn't a good idea, and people didn't like it as a whole. And that's why it was eventually voted down. And this is the problem with the SA, and going back to your previous question, ideas are being generated at the top and not the bottom. That's not how any government should work. Ideas should be generated from the bottom up. And so what I learned from this entire process, and the reason I took my name off the final legislation, is because the student body as a whole did not agree with it. And so that is why Grace and I have started a new working group. We're working alongside Ariana as well, and Tanner, who's in the audience today. And we are forming a working group to raise this question once again and see how you actually want to fix it, instead of trying to throw something at the problem and hope it fixes it. So that is what I learned from this whole experience. That is why I finally took my name off of legislation. Regarding declining to comment to the Thresher, I actually didn't see the person because they weren't friends with me on Facebook, and they Facebook messaged me, so I would have commented with that exact response.
I think about the whole LEAP process. I really learned that your feedback as a student body is important, and that ideas that we do, like Juliette has said, do need to come from the bottom. When we're making change like this, we need to start from where your problems are and figure out how we can solve them. Personally, I again was brought on the LEAP proposal by Justin with a almost complete proposal in hand. And when I realized what we were doing and that we were going to go straight to creating LEAP as an entity, I decided that I needed to go talk to people in the group and make sure that they feel okay with what was going on. And that definitely pushed me into a more uncomfortable situation where I had to challenge someone who was above me in leadership. And I feel like that is really important, because we don't need to just see these people who are above us and have fancy titles as people who we just follow and listen to. They're people that we need to constantly question and ask them, are you doing the best thing for the student body? Are you doing the best thing so we can help everyone at Rice? And that was something that I really took away from that experience, is that if you don't challenge things and question people, you're just going to go on with the status quo and not change anything. On the decline to comment, I also felt that my comment was not going to add to the conversation well, and I felt like they already had a decent understanding. Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to move into questions for individual candidates. So this one's for Juliette. You've stated in your platform that you want to focus on inviting feedback from the student body via surveys for the SA. So how do you propose incentivizing students to give that feedback and take those surveys?
Sure, so when I say survey, I don't necessarily mean those Google surveys that y'all hate and I hate and never want to respond to, because those aren't always effectual. When I mean survey, I mean going to individual colleges and sitting down with a lunch table of faces you have never seen before and saying, so I have this idea about, trying to get free yoga at the rec. What do you think? And then getting feedback that way. So surveying face to face. This is an interaction that we don't do enough of as SA leadership, and that I hope we need to continue, and I know we need to continue and hope to do as IVP. Of course we could send out a few additional Google surveys. I'm not opposed to sending those out, but that's not enough. That's been the way of the past, and it's not the way of the future. Technology is great, but technology does not make up for face-to-face communication. And I believe that, oftentimes people come back and say, oh, I don't know how I'm going to vote on this, so I'm just going to vote one way, or how I feel. But I think that's very insufficient and an inefficient way to govern, because you should be able to reach your constituents. And as IVP, I'm not just representing the committees, I'm not just representing the NSRs, but I'm representing you. So I would make sure that my committee members, my committee heads, and even my NSRs are getting feedback by surveying through face-to-face interaction.
So this next question is for Grace. You introduced the SA bylaw amendment for transparency, and transparency continues to be an important part of your platform for IVP. According to the amendment, the SA president, IVP, and EVP are the only SA officials besides the residential college presidents who do not have to submit regular reports. Over the past year, do you think these positions have remained transparent despite their exemption, and what do you think can continue to be improved, and how?
Great question. Speaking on that bylaws amendment, the transparency element is incredibly important to me, because if you don't know what's going on in the student association, then what are we even doing? Because again, if we're just making bills and making task forces, working groups, working forces, that just really doesn't affect you on a day-to-day basis. Speaking to kind of the point on executive positions not having to submit progress reports, I think this is something that we decided just as a way to test out whether this would work, because we wanted to see that would these progress reports actually people do them, would people do them well, and would people actually engage with them? And I think at the moment we are working kind of on the engagement part. And I think once we figure that out, I think we can really see, being more transparent with the executive positions. Because I want you guys to know what's going on. I want you to know me not as this fancy IVP in my non-existent office, but as someone that you can come and talk to and come and meet and bitch with and all that stuff that I feel like I can be there for you. So that's something I think we can definitely investigate in the future. And I think this year the executive team has actually been really great on letting the student body know what's going on.
This next question's for Juliette. You've previously voiced your support for President Trump, and given the SA's involvement in political action regarding topics such as DACA and refugees and his administration's actions over the past year, how do you balance your support of President Trump with the SA's recent initiatives?
So the national organization that I work on behalf of is a 501c3, which means it's completely nonpartisan, which also means that if I voice any political opinion, we lose our tax exemption status. So I am no stranger to segmenting my life into my personal beliefs and then representing others. And also the IVP is not a role that should ever express political opinions, and I would never express my political opinions as IVP. As I mentioned in my opening, the IVP is an executor, a manager, and a mentor. Now, I would also like to say that as senator, I actually voted for the bill about DACA. I voted for the flu vaccinations. I have not let my personal beliefs get in the way of representing my college. I do not believe that I should ever insert my political beliefs, my religious beliefs, onto others. If people want to come and confide in me about their beliefs or even question mine, I welcome that. I welcome discourse, and that is why I've worked with the Academic Freedom Working Group to write a letter to administration to encourage discourse, to encourage dialogue, and to bring diversity to campus, because I believe that everyone's opinions should be challenged, and I believe mine should as well. And that's what I have to say on that matter.
Just a quick follow-up. You'll have 30 seconds for this. You currently serve as the Rice University College Republicans chairperson, and in the case that you're elected IVP, would you continue in that position?
I would, because they wouldn't conflict. That's all I have to say if you want to go to the next question.
This next question is for Grace. One of your goals, should you be elected to the IVP position, is to make sure each NSR has their own project. Considering the number of NSRs across campus, what do you envision the scale of each project to be, and how do you plan to manage each of these projects?
No problem. Actually, this year, I've served on the Best Practices Committee and the Environmental Committee as the senator representative. And what I found was if our committee chairs were in the right mindset of empowering the NSRs to challenge themselves and think about what they want to make change on campus, that the NSRs were happy to respond. On both of the committees I served, I and the committee heads actually helped the NSRs develop their projects. We helped the NSRs send emails, even help them go to meetings. And it's really not that hard. A lot of it is just to talk to them, figure out what they're passionate about, figure out what drives them. And then it's just kind of magic what happens next. Some examples. I worked with a student this year on government restructure and how can we make the SA function more efficiently. And when I first approached her with this project, she definitely was overwhelmed. But as we started to talk more and as she got to go deeper into research, she was just so excited that I reached out to her with the opportunity to get involved. And now she has a legislation with her name on it and is just an overall amazing human I've gotten to work with. So I think it's really just inspiring passion, and that's what the internal vice president's position should do, is mentoring and supporting students to be the best they can be and the best they can be for Rice.
We're now going to move back to questions for both candidates. One of the IVP's functions is to serve as a close advisor to the president. If you and the president disagree, what would you do? And we'll start with Juliette.
Sure. So as I said before, open discourse is something that I value greatly. And you know, I've worked alongside Justin a lot this year, and he can definitely attest that I have let my opinions be known, as can Isabel Allison, who's been the president of Duncan this past year. I don't have an issue questioning authority figures, but at the same time, I believe that all discourse should be constructive, and I believe that opinions and ideas are best formed when they're two sides offered. But also, you know, if I disagree with the president, I would also go back to the committees, to the NSRs, and back to you to make sure that my opinion on the matter is what you actually believe. Because my personal belief on whether or not we should execute something is not important. What is important is your opinion.
So I actually kind of had to go through this year. As we were working on the LEAP decision, Justin and I did come into conflict on what should we do moving forward on LEAP. And definitely it was hard. It's hard to question people that you look up to and people that do hold a position above you. But it's often necessary if you think there is an impetus need to make sure that what they're doing is okay. And I think that's something that I worked through with him, and we actually were able to come to a conclusion on the issue. We met and discussed and worked together to actually include a second question on the survey of all students related to kind of what you guys wanted to see in your undergraduate curriculum. And that's kind of a conflict resolution process that I take, is that when I have conflict with people, I want to know where that conflict came from. I want to know why we're having this conflict, and I want to know where we can go from here. And I don't in any way like to bring in my personal relationships or personal beliefs into those conflicts, because it's all about representing the student body and making sure that you all have a voice and feel heard. Because at the end of the day, Juliette is right. We are your representatives. We are not your lords or any ruler above you. We are just people that were elected by you to serve you. And if in any case I will have to do that, I will make sure that I will be that person.
So this question comes from the audience, and it was submitted by Ashton Duke. And it's for both candidates. What have you completed in your role in the essay? Not what you are working on, but completed. What impact have you made? And we'll start with Juliette.
Sure. So as I mentioned previously, I don't believe it is about the quantity of what you accomplish, but the quality, which is something that I would work with the committees and as IVPs, making sure that they focus on succinct and specific things that impact the Rice community. And what I have accomplished as senator from Duncan is I have officially passed the Academic Freedom Working Group letter, which I mentioned previously. And that I'm going to be working alongside this working group. Maurice is in this working group, as well as several other Dunkaroos and members at large who are not a part of the SA government. And presenting this letter to administration, voicing the opinions of the student body that came through survey and the survey of all students was very comprehensive, that we believe in discourse and dialogue and should have an openness of opinions on campus. So this is something that I value very closely, because this is the bedrock of our society here at Rice. And if we don't have that, we have nothing. So this is something that impacts every single student at Rice, and that is what I have worked on. Additionally, I've worked very closely alongside my NSRs. Ramya, who was my NSR from Duncan, she presented the mental health clause to go into, to be presented at Faculty Senate to go into every teacher's syllabus, so that people who have mental health issues can feel free to talk to their teachers. So I helped her write that legislation. I'm very proud of her for doing that.
So things I've worked on this year have centered around three things. How do we make the SA better? How do we serve our new student representatives to be empowered to create change? And how do we serve the student body in ways that make sure that you have the best Rice experience you can have?